9 News at 9 starts right now.
Just as the power started to come back on for tens of thousands of Coloradans, Xcel may cut it off again. Thanks for joining us. I'm Alexandra Lewis.
And I'm Kyle Clark. This is because tomorrow's wildfire risk is greater than yesterday's. So another planned electric outage in the morning could impact 67,000 people. Xcel cut power to 50,000 people yesterday, and then an even greater number lost power naturally in events because of the high winds. Tomorrow, Xcel expects to cut electricity to homes and businesses in Boulder County, Clear Creek, Gilpin, Jefferson, Larimer, and Weld counties. That could happen as early as 5 a.m. Xcel acknowledges with yesterday's shutoff, there are people who could go more than 3 days without power.
9 News meteorologist Chris Bianchi is here for us tonight. Chris, this is all because of particularly dangerous weather setup you're tracking.
Yeah, don't like the look of this for tomorrow for a couple of reasons. We'll break down those reasons why and why that fire danger is higher for tomorrow compared to yesterday's. First of all, we've issued a weather impact alert for tomorrow because of that high fire danger. Winds will be similar to what we saw yesterday. They will be longer lasting compared to what we saw yesterday as well. Now, you might notice in this zone, including Boulder, Jamestown, Ward, and down to just about Golden, there is this little shaded zone. This is what we call a particularly dangerous situation. This issued by the Weather Service, the National Weather Service, for the first time ever in terms of a red flag warning for the state of Colorado. So this denotes an especially higher danger zone in terms of that wind, and also because of that very dry air mass. PDS, very rare designation, first time we've ever had a PDS red flag warning here in Colorado. Winds right now, just saw a 76-mile-an-hour wind gust at Top Berthoud Pass, but otherwise those winds right now, not too bad. Those winds will rev up later on tonight. We'll go through that forecast and break down everything you need to know coming up in just a few minutes.
Restaurant owners across the Front Range are preparing for the possibility of another power shutoff, and with that, lost business.
Obviously, each day they aren't open is a day that they're not making money. 9 News reporter Shalima Maharaj is in Golden with that. Shalima?
Yeah, good evening, guys. Where we are standing right now, you can see the lights are shining bright right here. But of course, it could be lights out for even more Coloradans tomorrow if that does come to pass. And for restaurant owners, it's especially a big hit for them. Not only those lost days of business, but you've got workers who are also losing those lost days for work, especially around the holiday season.
We're going 6 wings all flats, extra crispy.
What you're seeing up front here is our prep fridge, which is essentially completely loaded with all the food that we had to pull out of our walk-in.
Veronica Turner and her husband are the owners of Turner's Pit Barbecue in Berthoud. They've been open for about a year.
The big problem we have is our walk-in. This cannot run off a generator.
They've got a couple of generators. On Wednesday, they were left in the dark after Xcel Energy shut off power to tens of thousands of Coloradans. Their power came back on at around midnight.
We got an order today because I thought we would be okay. And everything in here is going to have to come out tomorrow, and I have nowhere to put it.
The Turners even resorted to sleeping in their restaurant overnight to keep an eye on their generators.
One of our employees who lives here, her and my husband ran over there, and they ran over with a mattress, and we stuck it on the floor with some blankets.
And with another public safety power shutoff possible on Friday, Veronica says they could wind up losing thousands of dollars in meat and produce.
If we lose power tomorrow, I will lose that entire walk-in of meat. I have nowhere to put it. The price of meat has gone up so incredibly much.
Right now, their plan is to be back at the restaurant at 5 a.m.
There's charging centers to charge your cell phone. There's these setups for things like that, but I mean, when you're shutting down small businesses, there should be a backup plan.
Now, Veronica has a few questions of her own for Xcel. She wants to know exactly how they decide who goes without and who continues to receive power. She also wants them to better state just how they're prioritizing who gets that power restored first. And in her own words, just better, clearer communication. Reporting in Golden, Shalima Maharaj, 9 News.
The Red Cross has opened a new overnight shelter for people without power. It's at Wellspring Catholic Academy in Lakewood. There's another overnight shelter at Gilpin County School in Black Hawk, and a charging center at Evergreen Library where people can charge their devices. Red Cross says everyone's welcome at those shelters, including pets.
All of the wildfires that broke out in northeastern Colorado last night are now contained. Yuma County provided that update just after about 5 o'clock tonight. The fires, which started last night, burned over 14,000 acres. Luckily, nobody was seriously hurt. The county says an abandoned trailer and a pig barn with no livestock inside were damaged. So were 2 smaller structures. Emergency managers believe the fires may have started by downed power lines, but they say the exact cause is still under investigation. Investigators say downed power lines caused a wildfire in Fort Collins this morning. The Poudre Fire Authority says it burned 2.5 acres on the west side of the city. Firefighters were close by when it started, so they were able to get in there and contain it pretty quickly. Crews are keeping an eye on the burn scar tonight and again tomorrow morning just to make sure it doesn't spark up again.
A prominent immigration activist who's been held in ICE detention in Aurora for 9 months has an opportunity to be released tomorrow. There's a bond hearing for Jeanette Vizguera. Vizguera was taken into custody in March outside the Target store in Denver where she worked. ICE says she was detained on a reinstated deportation order tied to a removal from more than a decade ago. That removal was based on the fact that she had been caught driving without a license and using a false ID. Vizguera's legal team argues it was in response to her activism. Instead, the fact that she prominently challenged deportations. She gained national attention during President Trump's first term when she sought sanctuary in a church in Denver to avoid deportation. Vizguera's bail hearing is scheduled for 9:30 tomorrow morning. Her supporters will be holding a vigil, something that they have done weekly since she was first detained. Federal prosecutors are tying a jewelry store robbery in Denver to what they describe as an international criminal operation. They're accusing 2 men of leading the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua and directing crimes here in Colorado without ever stepping foot in our state.
Prosecutors say one is in custody in Colombia. The other is on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. 9 News reporter is at the federal courthouse, Ria Ja, and Ria has more.
Yeah, so the tool that prosecutors are using in this case is called a RICO charge. It allows prosecutors to commit or to use multiple crimes and put them into one case. So in this case, there's 2 Tren de Aragua leaders, and they're alleging that they directed multiple violent crimes in Denver while operating outside the U.S.
You may be familiar with this case because we have previously charged these individuals and it has been widely publicized.
We've extensively reported on this. He's right.
On the afternoon of June 24th, 2024, 8 men brazenly robbed a jewelry store here in Denver.
But Peter McNeely, the U.S. Attorney for the District of Colorado, reviewed the details of that case again, where employees were beaten at gunpoint and $4 million worth of jewelry was stolen. Today, he came here to say they indicted the guys at the top.
This robbery was carried out at the behest of Tren de Aragua leaders, specifically the 2 individuals who we have now charged in this case. Brawins Dominique Suarez Villegas, aka Chino San Vicente, and Giovanni Vicente Mosquera Serrano.
Their new federal indictment alleges these 2 men, Suarez Villegas and Mosquera Serrano, weren't just connected to the crime. They say the men oversaw Tren de Aragua operations and approved the jewelry store heist and ordered the money to be moved and laundered to benefit their gang.
Although these 2 people were calling shots from South America, Suarez Villegas and Mosquera Serrano each had a hand in heinous crimes which were committed here in Colorado.
Prosecutors say the jewelry store heist and a case of kidnapping and torture months later were part of a broader pattern of violent crimes the men directed from outside the U.S.
That's why several people were charged initially with the underlying violent crimes, and then ultimately months later we were able to bring this charge.
Also, this announcement may naturally lead people to wonder whether criminal activity involving TDA is increasing or prevalent here in Denver, to which my answer is no.
Police Chief Ron Thomas says they aren't aware of any criminal activity involving TDA members currently in Denver. But today's indictment shows how international criminal networks that aren't even in the city still can hit close to home. Prosecutors didn't give us much information on how exactly they found these men, but they did say one of the leaders, Suarez Villegas, is in custody in Colombia and faces extradition to Colorado. The other guy, Mosquera Serrano, is on FBI's top 10 most wanted list, and there's a $5 million reward for any information leading to his arrest. They did say they don't believe he is in the U.S., though. Reporting live in Denver, Ria Ja, 9 News.
Ria, thank you. So new tonight, all of the wildfires that broke out in northern Colorado. I'm sorry, moving on to another story. A man suspected of killing 2 and hurting several others in a shooting at Brown University has been found dead. Authorities say the body of Claudio Valente, a 48-year-old former Brown student and Portuguese national, was found this evening in a storage facility in New Hampshire. Investigators say he died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Authorities believe the man is responsible for both the shooting at Brown last Saturday and the killing of a Massachusetts Institute of Technology professor who was shot in his home on Monday. But authorities have not formally confirmed a connection between the 2 shootings.